Hey guys, this is Eddie Barco, and welcome once again to the Nebula Music Podcast. If this is your first time joining us on this podcast, this is a show where we talk to some of today's coolest, most inspiring musicians of the industry, whether they're notable or they're doing something really cool or amazing. We have them on the show to pick their brain just for a little bit and get to know them. And today we have a very special guest, someone who's incredibly talented, someone who's been making some really big moves very fast. I'm honestly genuinely impressed by how fast this individual has been rising. And so if I get a couple minutes to pick her brain, I am definitely more than happy with that. I have Miss Julia Gargano joining me today. How are you, Julia?
I am so good. I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm excellent. Was that intro to your standards? Was that okay?
I was like, my cheeks are hurting a little bit. Do I address how kind that was? Thank you.
Well, I don't lie in the intros. I just say them how it is. And I always say this, and it's not like it's kind of cheesy to say, but I really don't have anyone who I don't think is doing something really cool on the show. So if you're doing something cool, you're doing it right, you're on the show.
Honor. It's an honor. So thank you.
Of course. How have you been so far? This is kind of a generic question, but I've asked everybody because, COVID, all that stuff. How are you holding up?
Exactly. I mean, you just hit it on the head. It's it usually is a boring question, but this year that question it's loaded. So I'm doing well. I'm definitely keeping busy, which is, important during this insanity. But it's interesting, I'm doing all this from home, I've for the most part. So I've really, buckled down, figured out creative ways to divvy up the rooms to have one room be my studio and one room be my bedroom. You know what I mean? Just but I've been good. I mean, I'm living the dream in the sense where I'm working musician, which is just incredible. Can't wait to tour. How are you? Are you doing okay during all this?
I am doing great when it comes to
good.
I'm happy to say that I'm doing great, but it's also one of those things where I'm careful because there are so many people that they're not doing great.
Exactly. 100%.
Yeah. Like podcasting and anything to do with anything you can do from home is pretty much thriving at this point. But when it comes to live performance, which I'm a drummer, and so that whole entire scene is pretty much just gone. But I also am a producer, so I can work from home when it comes to this stuff. So for me, it's it didn't really change a lot. I just kind of shifted my focus to the other two things that I do. And then the drumming stuff just kind of took a pause. But here's one thing I'm wondering, because I feel like everybody has a different answer when it comes to this, and I'm curious what yours is mentally when it comes to, and creatively too. Once the pandemic hit, I know that many people were kind of were okay for the first 2 months because it was said that it was going to be done, no big deal. But then once May or June hit of last year, a lot of creative people just felt very stuck, very wait a minute, we're not getting out of this, are we? So for you, were you pretty much good the whole way through, or did you ever hit that little slump?
It's interesting because the pandemic hit during American Idol, and that was honestly the turning point in my career. I was very, timid, and I didn't really I looked at myself more as a songwriter. So not only when the pandemic first hit, so much, we were kind of talking about how we don't want to say we're doing great when so much.
I mean, it's okay to say we're doing great, but
yes,
yeah.
When the havoc is break. This is right when the havoc was happening. The worst part of it was also when I was on American Idol, which was pretty cool, for my career and everything. But interestingly enough, I really never got that creative block, the blockage or the writer's block or anything or just even the mental health effect of this quarantine until a month or two ago, because when everything started to settle down, I was why am I so anxious? Why am I getting depressed? And I was this is what everybody else was feeling this whole time. And here I was on,
Dude, I feel you, because I do feel probably right after Christmas for me is when I started feeling all this angst out of nowhere. I was just okay, I think this is the impatience that a lot of people have been talking about.
Yes.
I've been dealing with it pretty healthily. You know, I literally just have to punch something every day now at this point, if you can't tell.
I see it.
I mean, I am a bit of a boxer, but like lately it's just like, I gotta take some more aggression on it. It helps quite a bit. But, you know, one thing that you did mention a little bit earlier, what I do find fascinating, and it's one thing that I like to explore with everybody, because everyone's personality is a little bit different. And you did mention that you were on American Idol, and that's something I want to explore quite a bit. But you did mention how you were a little bit timid, and I love exploring when people are timid, because I used to be timid too, and then out of nowhere I became outgoing at some point.
Yeah, interesting, right?
So for you, were you always timid, and then did being on American Idol change that, or how did that change, I guess?
So I was timid. Okay, so I've always been outgoing, and I love to talk, and I've always been like that, more like
I couldn't tell.
I know, I'm like, but in the sense of where I wanted my career to go, it was definitely more behind the scenes for a long time. And it was interesting because how American Idol even came about was I was an intern at a recording studio, just like literally doing like the dirty work, you know what I mean? And
the paperwork, the coffee, all
of that stuff. And it was a really cool place. But my boss, we're like really tight, so it's weird to call her my boss, but she came to me and was like, so I'm putting this list together for this private American Idol audition. And I was like, okay, cool. So I did it for her and stuff. And then a couple days later, she's like, oh, I threw all your stuff on it too and sent it to the producers, and like they want to see you tomorrow. So it was like yeah. So imagine like, and again, I was going to college at the time for songwriting. Like, it is what I wanted to do. I always gigged. I love to gig, but when I was performing, I was showcasing the song, not my voice. I was very insecure about my voice. So,
how come, if I can ask?
I think it's just, I don't know if I just have such a passion for writing and the process of writing, and that's really what I listen to in singers. You know what I mean? Like, for example, I love Bob Dylan. Is he the most angelic voice I've ever heard? No, but is he writing these like insane, like, you know, groundbreaking songs? Yeah. So I think I naturally just always wanted to showcase the song more. And I just never looked at myself as a vocalist, but as a songwriter. So it was a really weird 3 days where I had to make this decision if I was going to take this step and like go on American Idol, which is just the craziest thing, because it's never something I would have done. Not because the show isn't amazing or anything, but it just, like, I don't know. I just never, I feel like you have to have some guts to be able to be like, hey, if you say no to me and on camera for the whole nation to see, like, people are incredible. So I always kind of lived that way of saying no to things that freaked me out. That was a big trait of mine. A very overly compliant, you know what I mean? And then you go on that show and just, you know, taking that chance and seeing that there could be a positive outcome. You know, it's not always rejection and like embarrassment. Like, that's what, you know, when I've always had anxiety my whole life. And that's just, you know, a natural thing for me to correlate is risks with danger. So it was a beautiful year in that sense too, where it really, the personal growth has just been nuts, because, you know, when you're on the TV show and after, I have to run my own ship. Like, it's really up to the artist to like know what they want, or else no one's gonna like come on board. You know, you have to have a vision, right? Like, you have to drive. So it was really this overnight need of confidence, and luckily the show really taught me how to develop that and grow into my own artist and, you know, woman, because I was struggling for a bit. So that's a long answer.
So is it safe to bet that you were not a bit of a risk taker before?
No, like, not even. I just loved living in my little box of just being comfortable. I was just so, and it was aggravating. It wasn't like I loved where I was. Like, I did know that about myself, and I was just so frustrated with it. And then I was watching, I was actually talking to one of my cousins, and they said something like, it was just something about the end of your life, you know, like when you're there, the last moment, like what are you gonna like regret? And like that always freaked me out. So I thought about that in the moment. I was like, is this gonna be something that later down the road I'm gonna be like, you're such a chicken? And I just did it.
Dude, I'm so happy for you. It's interesting because I feel like I kind of relate with you a little bit in that sense where when I grew up trying to do music myself, I noticed that there was this sort of personality trait that a lot of musicians around me had that I didn't really have either. And there is this sort of risk taking, I don't know how you would call it, but there's this personality trait where people are just like, oh yeah, I'm going to go for that, go for this, go for this,
100%.
But like I have always been, and again, as an adult, I learned more about it. But as a kid, I would just subconsciously act on these things. But I have always been more of a strategist. Like I'm very much, I observe from a distance. I kind of see what happens. I formulate a plan in my head, and then I execute. And then once I feel like a comfortable path, I go for it. I'm like a freight train that can't stop. 100%. But as a kid, I didn't know that. I didn't know that that's how I operated. And so I guess for what I'm trying to get at since American Idol, you decided to take that risk. Do you feel like it awoke something in you? Did it change it? Or did it maybe just enhance something that was already there for you and you just needed that little extra push to like make it happen? Or I don't know.
I think it's interesting. It definitely gave me the healthy kind of confidence that just like, this can be something that I can do for the rest of my life. Because that's another insecurity that I'm sure every musician that is just trying to like break through the noise and become like, you know, just make their name known to, you know, to feel. It's like, so it definitely gave me that, oh, okay, like, you know, you're on the right path. Like you don't need a plan B, which I never had naturally, which is like, it's just the way things kind of fall into place. And it also taught me really how to, not to sound like aliens, man, but like
we can talk about aliens if you
want. But like really to just like whether it's God or the universe or whatever you believe in, just something, you know, things happen for a weird reason. And that whole experience, if anything, taught me that. Because again, that show, never in a million years, any of the like any of those shows just scared me so bad. And it wasn't even on my radar. There wasn't even like before that week, there wasn't even like a thought ever in my head, like, what if I went on those shows? So it was a weird thing that happened and fell into place. And I still don't really understand it, but it's freaking weird.
I know, but I love that you handle it well. If you don't mind me backtracking a little bit.
Not at all.
Do you feel like, well, I guess I want to be transparent about this, but were you highly encouraged by your environment, whether it was your parents or maybe your siblings or maybe even your group of friends growing up? Were you constantly encouraged and like, you know, taught to believe that you could do it? Or would you say that it was maybe the opposite where people were always fighting against you? You had to figure it out, or maybe somewhere in between. That's something I'm actually kind of curious about.
Yeah, I mean, I was always encouraged to do music, which is amazing. I know some other artists just did not have that luxury, and that must have made it so much harder, you know, for anybody to pursue a dream that people don't get behind, especially people that you love, because that's whose opinions matter most, you know.
Yeah.
Besides your own. I was always surrounded by music. I went to, you know, like an arts high school, or I studied songwriting in college. I was actually fellow drummer. Well, not anymore, but my first instrument, I begged my mom to take drum lessons when I was 6.
That's awesome. Mad respect to you.
Thank you. I was just like, I don't know where that came from, but I was like, I want to play drums. So that's how I
hit something. I love it.
That was definitely on brand for the kind of child I was. And my mom just put me in, and then ever since, it's just, I couldn't have asked for a better hand of cards dealt to me in that sense. My dad is also a songwriter. I mean, he has another job that isn't, you know, musical, but it's something that we would always do together. And even just hearing him like create was really, really cool for me as a young girl. And I had a teacher when I was around 8. So I started playing drums, and then I eventually just started to like sing to my drum teacher and was like writing songs, and it was just like not the best fit. So I hopped over to piano lessons, and my teacher, I swear this as another person in my life that changed everything. I was 8 and he was also a songwriter, and we would just write songs and record, and he would take me to a studio and for free just like record all of my songs when I was 8, 9, 10. I have all of
That's
these.
cool.
And it's just like little people like that in your life, you know, who just really like, who looks at an 8-year-old and like thinks that what they do is good. I mean, unless you're just like some beast, but I wasn't the most magically talented child.
But you seem to be loving what you were doing. And I'm happy that you have this story of genuine love that surrounded you, because I do feel like that encouragement helps develop, you know, young people to be able to do music. One thing I'm curious about, because I do feel like a lot of musicians like you, like myself, almost everyone that I've talked to, with a few exceptions here and there, have a similar story where whether or not they were encouraged or not, you know, they wanted to do music. And then at some point there was this sort of not overwhelming doubt, but there was this sort of like confrontation to the realities of whether or not they could do it. And for me, I don't know where it came from. And that's why I'm trying to figure out if you know like where yours came from. But I also had pretty supportive parents when it came to having creativity. Like, I'm Hispanic. I come from a pretty low income Hispanic immigrant family. Mm-hmm. So music was how would you call it? Like, it was just like a luxury that we really couldn't afford, but they saw that I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So they helped me.
Yeah.
But at some point in my young adult life, I don't know what happened, but maybe it was because I personally, this is just about me. I don't know about you, but maybe I felt really like pressured to try and make it, you know, to try and live up to an expectation, or maybe to like pay it forward to all these people that helped me. I really have no idea where, but I've been able to kind of identify that a lot of the little, the reason why I was frightened to make choices in my early adult life was because of that. For you, I know that you did mention that there were some moments where you might have been like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, or it might be kind of weird or whatever. Do you feel like it might have come from somewhere like that, or maybe it's just somewhere completely random? Or is that even justified to say that some artists have that?
No, it's so true, because I mean, it's really your definition of success. I feel like that can deter people from, you know, like I have been faced with like different levels of success. Like, okay, like if you want to like sell out arenas, right? Like that has been something where I'm like, I don't think I can ever do that. Or like, it depends like what really makes you happy as a musician, like what, you know what I mean? And I think that's what takes artists a while to find out. Sorry, it took me a minute to get my words. Like what their level of success they're striving for is, you know? If it's just, if you're a musician and all you want to do is just have a lot of people connect with your music, and I feel like that's a lot more attainable, you know what I mean, than like putting money, like price signs, all this stuff next to a goal that you're trying to kind of achieve. And there's been so many times where I don't know if I ever doubted doing music, or not, I've ever doubted like taking this as a career. But again, like I was almost just being like, maybe I can find something cool in publishing, or maybe I can find something cool as like, you know, like a different area in the field. But I think what's scary about it is just that when you are an artist, you are your business. Like you are what is being put out into the world, you know, like no matter how shy you are, no matter how, you need to like have that ability to just entertain a lot. And that's another thing, again, like as a I grew up with this just generalized anxiety disorder, and that already kind of just puts so many doubts in your head, or you know, these weird roadblocks or limitations and stuff. So it's a weird line for everybody, but for me it was just like,
I feel you. Can I ask? I'm not sure if it's this is too personal, but
I'm an open book, really.
Okay, I love it. And again, if I ever say something, just be like, "Hey, fuck you! Don't ask me that." but you know, you said that you have this anxiety disorder. If I can ask a little more information about that, because I've actually had the pleasure to talk with maybe 2 or 3 artists. I can't remember the top of my head. Kayvon's another guy, so shout out to you, who also has a diagnosed anxiety disorder. And we kind of had a bit of a chat on how that is a term that is very highly misused nowadays. You know, most people are like, I have anxiety.
Yes.
And you don't. You're just nervous. And so I'm wondering for you, like, can you explain to me a little bit what your version is? You know, if you don't mind.
No, and that, dude, like you just made such a good point, and it's not even bashing people. I will totally touch on that in a second, but I want to like talk about what you said because it's so true. And it's not that people are, you know, like offending people with anxiety when they say, "Oh, I'm anxious." Like it's really it's a addictive mindset. So what I think when people like, I want to speak out about people misusing that word because it will make them have anxiety. Like it's a weird thing. Like you can really train yourself to be actually have anxiety. It's bizarre. Like if you replace every negative adjective with the word anxious. So if you replace the word sad with anxious or nervous with anxious or scared as anxious, you're just going to be anxious. It's insane the power that your words have over you. So that's just crazy because I've learned that the hard way and watched so many people, like just kind of grab onto that. I don't like fad almost, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just dangerous because it can snowball into an actual issue.
Yeah.
So my anxiety was definitely, it was definitely a little bit more deep rooted. Like I had, I had a handful of issues growing up that made me extremely timid and scared to be myself. And it was just kind of like a host of little situations that caused me, you know, the way of thinking that I have. And that is why I think almost my parents, it might have encouraged me to do music so much because it was this outlet, you know, it was just like, I didn't feel like I was being dramatic that's a part of anxiety. Like that's a part of my anxiety that I've had to, you know, really relearn about myself is that, you know, complaining equals dramatic, like sharing your feelings equals this. So, I didn't feel that when I was writing a song because it was just for me, you know, at that point in my life, or, that's what like musicians did. It's just like talk about their feelings. Like it was normal. So yeah, my anxiety has been a really crazy journey because you know, at first it was undiagnosed and I was just, you know, a nervous kid, like had all these weird thoughts and problems with relationships, friendships, you know, like, and then I wanted to go see a doctor, all that stuff, went to therapy throughout my whole life, which I can't recommend enough. Therapy is amazing. Like you don't realize you need it. But I always look at that, and this is for everybody out there that might struggle with anxiety and like think it's a huge burden, which unfortunately it does suck a lot of the time. But my therapist told me something that really changed my thought process. And he said that anxious thinkers are analytical people. And a lot of the time being analytical is a sign of 1, intelligence, and 2, that you care. And he said that he thinks the real people that he's worried about, my therapist, are people that don't get nervous or overthink, because that's the real issue. That's like somebody that might like kind of
do something out of the
explode.
Blue. And then
The people that, you know, that might are, you know, the people that don't feel like, so our ability to feel things heavily, can be a burden, but that's how we might write really emotional music or have a sense of empathy that is just such a special trait about us. I'm not saying this. I'm just saying as in general. Like we are people,
for sure.
But there's just so many negative things that come along with it. So I think it's important to kind of talk about the positive parts of anxiety. Not that there's many, but you know, it does.
So is it safe to assume that when you have anxiety, you just feel emotions on a much higher level?
Oh my!
Is that what it is? So in a way?
Yeah. I mean, so of course there's the my mom would actually do this thing when I was like, I'm anxious. She would be like, something or nothing, because sometimes there is the nothing part would just be that's where the real that's kind of the sucky part of anxiety is when there's no overthinking. It's just like a physical and mental. That's another thing. You're not always anxious about something. And when, that's even more sucky when you can't find the root of it and you just have that feeling. But then
you feel like a little muddy. You're just like, you just feel
yeah,
it.
No,
You don't know what it is specifically.
Exactly. And you're just like, oh, it's like very similar to the feeling like right before you take a big scary test or you're waiting for like that's the feeling with no connection. So that's obviously
oh God, it must be frustrating, man.
Yeah, but then there's that overthinking element where that's what makes like it's hard for anxious people to sometimes have successful relationships or friendships when you don't have those kind of overthinking tendencies under control, because that's where your mind will just run wild and it's like
very, very far. Yeah,
exactly.
Wow.
But it does give you this, to answer your question, because I went on a tangent, it does give you that ability though to connect with people on such a deeper level though, because if somebody is like upset or if somebody is not feeling well, like it will make you unsettled. It's weird. It's like this weird magnet when people have that like crazy anxiety. It's like if somebody else is struggling, that makes you nervous. So like you want to fix it. It's like selfless and selfish at the same time. It's
wow. That's insane. I mean, I appreciate you being honest with me.
Yeah, I'm passionate about this. So.
Well, the thing is, it's so misunderstood, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I do feel like it's one of those things that's misunderstood, and it can be a very difficult existence to some extent, especially like with friendships and stuff like that. Like how did that affect? I know you briefly mentioned, it affects your relationships and it affected your friendships and stuff. But I imagine as a kid, as a child, that must be way harder than an adult. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, how did that? I mean, I don't want to say it this way, but were you mostly like alone, or did you push away a lot of friends? I'm just trying to kind of get the bigger picture.
I think it's harder because as like to say if you grow apart from somebody, or which is just like a very natural thing that happens in life for somebody that overthinks things often, it's heartbreaking. It's like it is the drama part of it, which I hate using that D word. It's like
drama.
I know. It's like because it's just calling someone dramatic is like kind of like a really shitty thing. It depends.
It's a bit of an insult nowadays.
It is only, listen, people obviously can be dramatic, but when someone's like really upset about something, it's like, well, maybe they have, like, I think the thing I love about this generation is that we kind of just dive deeper into people's stories before making judgments, you know what I mean, on their behavior, like, which is really important because think about, the people and your friends and your family, like, and how many of those people just have had hard times growing up, and
yeah,
if I know so many people that can name a tick about themselves or an aggressive quality or something they don't like about themselves. And they can be like, well, this is for me getting my heart broken that time. This is when I got cheated on. Like, it's all different things. Or like, this is when yada, yada, yada happened. So different for everyone. But when I was younger, again, I think I just took things like so hard all the time. And that caused a lot of, I was a little more deep as a child than I was a little, everyone had a lightness about them. And I think, I definitely had my goofy side, but I was emotional, like, and that obviously it can be hard to love someone who just feels things so deeply. It was dramatic.
I love that you based on what I'm gathering, I've only been talking to you for a little bit, but like you obviously love yourself and you don't take yourself that seriously, which is kind of cool. I mean, I love that you are just playful like that. I'm wondering, once you identify that you have anxiety, I know you went to the doctor and you go to therapy, you might even have some medication. What is the path to controlling it, I guess? Because I imagine the anxiety doesn't always go away, right? Yeah.
It honestly, it depends. And it can. It's like, that's the thing about anxiety that is so misunderstood, is that and that's what I was saying before about this addictive mindset. It's so easy to say out loud that you are an anxious person, or like you will you can't be helped. Like, it's just your brain is so powerful, and the proof is in the pudding with telling yourself that you're anxious. Like, there's a reason you get to a low point so low, and it's because the only things you're saying out loud are negative. And I will never forget, I think it was the first time, it was one of the first episodes where I like got manically depressed and super anxious, and it was just like, it's almost, if it goes on too long, you can get to a point of just feeling like somebody's playing a video game and you're the main character. It's like, you do not, it's the weirdest shit. And then one morning, and it's also a common thing to be really against trying new things. Like, I thought so much stuff was bullshit. Like, people would be like, envision a stop sign and then you'll not have a panic attack. And I'm like, yeah, right. But
I mean, that sounds kind of silly.
I know, but listen, it happened. It works for people. But one morning I woke up and somebody had tried to recommend positive affirmations to me. And again, right off the bat, I was like, this is ridiculous, blah, 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 blah. And I started doing it just in the morning to myself out loud. Very important, out loud. And it's just insane the way our brain works. It really makes a difference. Like, if you always are projecting to the world, and if it's your brand to be an anxious person, that's just never going to work out for you. You are so much, you have to be a person that like has, sometimes gets anxious. Like, you have to figure out a way to word it where it's not defining you, because so quickly anxiety defines everything you do. It's the thing that everyone knows about you. That is where the fad part. I don't like that. It's not that, people, because it is an issue when people overuse the word, because then they become anxious, but it's almost worse in that way where, oh dang, I lost my train of thought. But you know what I'm saying? It's just like,
yeah. I mean, to me, like, what I gather, and again, I'm not right about this topic.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm just like, I also just am speaking from personal experience. Like this,
Well, what I like about you is that you deal with your stuff, and you're like, hey, I want to move forward and I want to do my part to help others understand this. But at the end of the day, it seems like you're doing your thing. You're trying to just live your life and do it the best you can. What I find fascinating is that there is this, I don't want to say it's just a trend amongst a lot of people, but I do see it a lot in artists, and which is why, I mean, I have a huge heart for artists, be it music or any kind of artist, because what we do is so vulnerable to like expose what we have. This is what I like, here, world, take it. It's a bit of a skill to learn how to even do that, how to just put it out there.
Yes.
And I do feel like there, maybe not so much right now, but definitely for the past couple decades, there has been this sort of like fantasizing of like the mentally struggling artist who's like depressed and anxious, and who's just like, that's where his power, or this artist's power comes from, is that pain. And I have had the pleasure of meeting many people who have found that is A, not true, and B, they have found how to actually like create even better art through the positivity and like getting better. And so when I hear talk about anxiety, I don't have it, so it's not my place to talk about it. But what really does sometimes bother me is that people are using it now as like not an excuse, but it's like, I'm gonna use it as a weapon to like make stuff. And in my mind, I'm like, well, it is an actual condition. People do suffer from that, and you don't need to be that. You can be positive and create even better stuff. So I don't know even what I'm saying.
I know, but I know, but I completely get what you're saying, and that is just what the sad part about it all is because a lot of artists are anxious. Like, they do have that deep emotional overthinking brain. Again, you have to think, like, overthinking is how you take 1 second of a thing that happened in your life and turn it into a 3-minute song. Like, that is literally the definition of overthinking. So if you like, but you know what I mean? Like, if you
but I love the example. Yes, great example.
Exactly. Like, if I love the way that some guy opens the door and I write a 3-minute song about it, it's like, you have to be able to access that part of your brain. And there are I think most of artists are like that, but it's the people too often can make it their whole thing. And not only is that damaging without them knowing it, either it's damaging or they're like fronting about the whole anxiety thing. You know what I mean? Because it's hard though. Everybody is so different. And some people actually might really have that issue and then, just like feel like that's how they're going to get people to connect to their music and stuff. Do I think that there are people that are kind of hurting their own health by doing that? Yeah. And you know what I mean? Do I think it's like a cool thing now? Yeah. But I also think it's just like running rampant because we're all stuck in that circle of just like saying, you know what I mean? Just like putting it out into the world. So it's,
you see, and that's kind of where I was coming from, and I'm glad that you brought it up because, to me, what took me a long time to learn, like I'm not saying I'm perfect or anything, but definitely in my early 20s, I suffered so much from different things that happened and emotional problems and whatnot. But what I ended up learning was that my mistakes were that I was living in that pain and really just kind of staying in it. And that's not to say that you can't use pain or use your emotions to channel artwork. That's all great.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, and what I've learned from, mentors or people who I really look up to that have kind of made it through is that the anxiety and the pain is supposed to teach you how to make it through. It's not supposed to stay there unless, you have a condition or anything. But if you have the ability to control it, the point of it is to help you move past it and grow from it. At least that's what I've come to understand it. And that's where I kind of draw the line where people seem to want to be stuck in it. If they're not like you, Julia,
no,
they want to like be in that pain and not move forward, The
hardest part about it though, is that I have been there. Like, I think everyone that genuinely deals with, serious anxiety, knows how almost impossible it can feel. So like a big part of my heart goes out to the people that, thinks that they are going to be stuck there forever and almost don't feel like they can get better. And you know what I mean? Like that mentality is part of the disorder. And it's so easy for people to kind of like, just in general, obviously, like for people to label it as selfish or like, stagnant or any of that. But in reality, it's part of the mindset. It's part of the, self-deprecation that can so come with just, being an anxious or having anxiety. So I do it. Cause and again, like I've been there. I've been in that where I'm like, I'm just like, I'm not going to get better. And like, that is the way it comes off. It's the way it, you know what I mean? I don't know. Yeah. It can come off like that so easily too, when it's actually serious. So
yeah. And you're right. And just to clarify, like what I was trying to say is mostly towards the people who don't have anxiety. I'm just using it as like the trend. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm like referring to. I think you're absolutely right. If you have something severe, and I mean, I can't imagine what it must feel.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And it's I think everything you're saying is valid because and I mean that by you don't have severe, I mean, actually, I don't know, but the way you're talking, like, do you, like, if you don't have severe anxiety, all of this seems I get where you're coming from, and it's cool. And it's so important though, to have the conversations with people that don't like actually have super severe anxiety, because there's just misconceptions, just like any other disorder or disease, or, you know what I mean? And that's why it's so cool just to have like cool, calm, collected conversations with just all of the assumptions and just like talking them out, because, it's like, oh yeah, that is annoying, but oh, hey, I've been there too. And it's part of the game, to feel like you're never going to get out. And then people obviously think you can be dramatic. It's just like, you know what I mean? It's crazy.
It is crazy. Can I ask you, once you have maybe like a deep feeling, or maybe in the past when you first started working with music and learning how to channel some of what you were feeling into your music.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is how did that work for you specifically? Did you learn to start making music during moments where you were feeling really down, or I'm not so sure even what I'm asking, but I'm wondering like how was it that you learned to channel what you were feeling into what you were creating?
It's so weird. It's just something that came so naturally to me. And I, like people are good at sports when they're younger. Like it's that I was just always music was just my thing. You know what I mean? And I can't explain when I got that ability or when that really clicked, but I was just constantly, and I think that's the part of me being like a deeper, like a deep kid who just like really was in touch with her emotions. Like I think I just wrote what I was curious about, you know what I mean? And that was anywhere from like soldiers coming home from war. Like I have a song about like just like, and that's what I mean about like a weird overthinking like kid. I was just fascinated by all these different scenarios and love, of course, like, you know what I mean? Like, and I think it was my way to kind of like live that, like live it myself, you know what I mean? And that, I think it was just a similar feeling that people get when they read a book, you know what I mean? And they can kind of create what the characters look like in their head, and they can kind of just put their own pictures to the words that are already written, kind of thing. And I do think that I loved that part of writing when I was younger, the storybook element, and that was like my kind of like fairy tale world instead of like reading, picture books. I was just kind of like writing songs about them or something.
Do you attribute music as part of the reason why I'm not so sure if you feel like you maybe have it under control now, maybe it's past your life, but do you feel like music was a huge reason why you were able to move past it or move above it, or I don't know how you would describe it, but was music that important to that process?
Do you mean like anxiety or?
Yeah, to like being able to overcome it, or because I'm not so sure where you're at currently with it, but I'm wondering how did music apply to that?
It's just up and down. Like it's nuts. I mean, obviously, music is my job now, which it never. So that's a whole other thing I'm kind of getting used to. I'll be transparent. Like I just recently started medication, but it's changed my life for the better at the moment, and that's another thing. Like it's to be normalized. Like people take medications for things all the time. And I think when it needs, I was just so against it for so many years. And I put the stigma in my head of like being too, and then you go on and you're like, oh, like, I get it. Like, this is nice and calm. So it depends. So, I mean, that's the method that helped me. I also go to therapy. It's, and I think all of those different avenues that I take, and I'm just like, again, I'm honest about myself. I don't like to, music, sorry, I'm going back to your question. Music is
I love your tangents, by the way.
I know.
I love where your brain goes.
I go awesome. Off. I don't, and then I'm like, oh, there's a question. I was like, and I totally probably didn't answer it. I was like, Julia, just stop talking. Yeah, music is like, it's funny because only I feel like in my extreme emotions, which it's the most soothing thing. So if I'm like having like a panic attack or something, or if I'm having like a real moment where I am like crying even or something like that, or the exact opposite, like say I just had like the best date of my life or something and I'm like super inspired, then music is like so therapeutic to me, and in the sense where it could like that process has really taught me how to calm myself down more. And, I know what tools can make me just go back to zero and ground myself. And that is music. Like nothing makes me feel better than driving around in my car and just like playing songs that were my favorite songs in high school. And it's just, music has this crazy power. And so it's hard to really derail nowadays because I think I'm just so locked into, this is going to be like aliens again, but the beauty of music, like I just think it's so powerful. But there's just so much BS that comes with this, industry, and that obviously that anxiety still remains, but it's just manageable. Again, that's so cool about medication. It's like there are just, for somebody that doesn't really know how to process a problem and healthily and just come up with a solution like a normal person would, it's really, it's a cool combination now, just being able to steer my own ship, like steer my own career, be able to make decisions that a normal person just can so easily make. And so I'm just excited for this, this next chapter. I just actually put out a song called You Don't Get To. It's on Apple Music, Spotify, all that good stuff right now. And that's an example right there where I went through a horrible breakup, and I used that for fuel for this song, and it's just such a cool process to see. And I think it's like the rewarding aspects of that make the anxiety like all worth it, like having gone through a crazy situation where you feel like you're being dramatic, or you feel like your heart just like won't mend ever again, and then you write the song and then you put it out and you just see people relate to it and you get the feedback and you're like, that's really special.
Yeah, this might seem like a stupid question. I've never actually written a breakup song. I've always wanted
to. Wow.
Does it actually, in your opinion, like, does it actually help you as the writer, like, just move past it? Or is it something that, like, lingers a little bit once people start listening to it and they're like, hey, I relate to that? Does that bring back memories?
No,
you're like, damn it, I also feel it.
No, oh my God, I just get so... I could so easily be feisty, so I'd rather just take it out in a song. And it is so beneficial. Like, it's almost like a loophole from telling the person exactly how you feel to their face, and then just like sneaking around that and just like putting in a song and putting it out, because it's like, I guess more I don't know which one's more polite, to be honest, but that is like, breakup songs are especially fun for me, or like any angry song or any like super, those are, I think, just so fun because you can just let it all loose and, avoid the drama by going to the person and like saying all like the crazy shit. And
you're like, this is what I wanted to tell you in your face, but now here it is in a 3-minute song.
Exactly. And that's what the You Don't Get To, the song that I just put out, was like 3 years ago is actually or 2 years ago. This is actually when the relationship took place. And I was just that's where my anxiety was actually just bumping back in the day. But I just never got a chance to stand up to myself. And I would always just be so nice. And like, you should always be nice, but you gotta tell people off when they deserve it, And
of course.
And I just never could, and I just let it go away. And then the song was so cool because it was just like another chance to be like, yo, that was messed up, bro. So
dude, I love that you did that too, like express your feelings. I want to move on to like talk a couple other topics, but I am curious about this one last thing.
Yes.
For in terms of relationships, in your opinion, I like, there's many people out there that actually have anxiety, and it does seem like it seems to be like not an issue, but it does seem to be something that a lot of people with anxiety can suffer with relationships. If someone is dating someone with anxiety, or is thinking about dating someone with anxiety, what is like something that you recommend that healthily can help you be with that person? I mean, obviously, in my opinion, if you love somebody, that's probably the most important thing, and that love will help you no matter what. And obviously lots of work goes along with it, even if both people are without issues, I guess you can say. But I imagine you, with that experience, what would you have wished that your relationships would have done, like your boyfriends, or I'm not sure who you date, but I'm wondering, like, what would you have wanted to have been the situation that would have helped them understand you better? I guess that's the one.
Yeah, it's so hard. And this is something that I don't want to offend anybody about. I am just very strictly projecting my own insecurities out right now. So this isn't saying that people with anxiety are hard to love, because that's not the reality.
You know what? People without anxiety are hard to love
exactly.
too. So.
And again, honestly, I think anxious people, or people that have a little bit of an overthinking tendency, can love harder than anybody you've ever met. So it's definitely a weird balance. I think people can be like really, again, they just want to make you, that's how I've always been. I've always just like, it's a weird, I'm either like, okay, I'm avoiding the topic that I'm trying to not spill about myself, but I've always felt like
say it whichever way you feel comfortable, just whichever way you feel comfortable.
Being in a relationship with a person that has anxiety, I think definitely takes a lot of patience and security in yourself, you know what I mean? And I think that's just what I found in my particular instance. I've had very successful, like short relationships or stuff like that have never really been impacted by anxiety too much, but it's because, the other person had a really good sense of self and a really kind heart. And I think that's another thing. It's just like you find a good person, it really won't be as much of a roadblock as it could be with somebody that's a little bit more of a, jerk or,
That's a very good answer.
That was much more collected.
But it makes sense, though. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I think it goes without saying that in relationships, it always takes, someone to be mature to actually like love somebody. But you're going to love somebody like you.
Yeah. I've even had the thought, I don't think I don't want to be in a relationship until it's time to like get married, because all of this, I'm just going to be like thinking about this and thinking about that. Obviously it's getting better as I get older because I'm just maturing, but it's a thought that I feel like a lot of people that struggle with that situation have, is like, I'm just going to be single because it's so much less, stressful than being in a relationship and having, people worrying, oh my God, they're gonna think I'm crazy because of this. They're gonna think it's like, no, thank you. I'll just go take myself out to Chipotle or something. I don't know.
Well, whatever helps you feel better. Right?
Oh my God. I mean, it just depends.
Yeah. Side note here. I know we're kind of reaching the hour mark. Do you have a couple more minutes?
Yeah, no.
Is it cool if we keep talking?
Literally my favorite hobby. I'm having I'm having such a good time, and this is a really great discussion. So I'm free to go.
I love it.
Yeah, free to go whenever.
Okay, cool. I just want to talk a little bit longer. If that's okay with you. That's so funny. Just the whole relationship thing. I mean, I feel like it's one of those things that everybody suffers with the relationships, no matter what you have. Everyone's going to suffer with it.
Exactly. It's just the overthinking thing. That's not even, and that's another thing that you can easily replace by like the excuse of being anxious. I've given so many guys, this is hilarious, where like they've actually done something wrong, but I was so insecure about myself that I would just blame my reaction on getting anxious. And that's another thing that's a good point. That's another thing that can be so self-deprecating, is that people can get mad for such a valid reason, and it can so easily be gaslighted because the person has claimed to be anxious before. They can be like, oh, like it's okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so easy for me to be like, oh yeah, I'm so sorry I reacted that way. Like, you know how I get, like, I was just so anxious. But meanwhile, the person was an absolute jerk and deserved every ounce of, anger and worry that I had. But I would just feel like that's such a habit for me that I would be like, oh, sorry.
So let me ask you this then, like, because it does seem like you are growing in the sense of understanding yourself better.
Exactly.
And, just getting stronger. Yeah. So ideally then, like, if you could imagine the person that is gonna like be able to just balance, I don't even want to say balance, because most of the self-love comes from us always, This has quickly become like a self-help podcast.
I know, but it's okay. I'm sorry.
I love it though. No, I love it. This is what it's all about.
They go hand in hand.
This is about you. Yeah. At the end of the day, like, I want to get to know you.
Yeah.
And so, but I also feel like there's so many people, both men and women, who are in your same shoes and probably feel like relationships are an impossible task.
Yes.
And I feel like it's such a sad thing, because relationships can be a very beautiful thing, very painful thing too. But it's like it's a very fun part of life, And so if you could imagine like somebody with the perfect traits, like you did say it earlier, like someone who was very caring and very, very patient. But in your opinion, since you do kind of overthink a lot, do you feel like, ideally speaking, you ideally need somebody who like just lets things go and just like has fun with it, or maybe has a big imagination? I don't know.
Yeah, I think I think you just said it. And I think it's someone that I don't know if personally I would thrive with just because I deal with things a certain way that I don't necessarily love. I think I would need someone that does deal with things. So I'm not saying that I would never date someone that has anxiety like me, but I think my ideal, other half is just someone with like a really big heart and just someone that looks at life a little lighter. You know what I mean? And I think those are some of the people that can really take you along on some adventures that you just wouldn't have gone on because you're so, you can get just so stuck in your own head. So I think, I think it's just, it's like a big, kind heart. Like, I'm not even kidding. Big, kind heart, and someone that just doesn't take life too seriously, because that's the opposite. I mean, I like to think I have a big heart, but I do take life very serious. So I think that counterbalance is like,
yeah. Well, I'm glad that you know who you are. Like, that's the cool thing that I find about you. Even just talking to you after about an hour, like I'm starting to understand that you go through what you go through, but you are always open to understanding who you are. And that's important because there are many people who are, how old are you, if I can ask?
23.
23. Okay. You look younger than that. But, there's many people who go through their whole lives without even trying to, and so that's a very good place to be in. One thing I was curious about was, now that you are in this good position where you are succeeding, you are doing what you love, you also recognize what you have, be it mentally or not. When it comes to jumping from where you were at, intern to like American Idol. Now that I understand your mind a little bit better, it seems like a massive fucking leap. Like when we first started, you were like, oh yeah, I was nervous. And I was like, okay, that would be a very nerve-wracking thing. But now after understanding what you go through, wow, holy shit. I can't imagine what you must have gone through when you set foot into that room with some legends and having to pour your heart out with something that I think you wrote, right? So how did you manage to do that? I mean, that's a very cliche, very basic question, but it's a very important one because it defines that life-changing moment for you. Now that I understand how heavy that was, holy shit, you did it.
I did.
But how?
I mean, it was... that's where I believe, like, the divine intervention thing. Something just really helped push me along through that process. And a big moment during that first audition, that initial audition that really was notable for me was you have to prepare a couple songs on your first audition, and I had my original, which I obviously was most keen of, as you know, that I didn't really think I was ever going to be a singer. And then I had a couple other songs. I think Call Your Girlfriend by Robin was one of them, and I played on guitar, and I went into you go to this like music supervisor room before you go in for the judges and just kind of like run over your stuff with them for some reason. And they were like, you know what? Like, I think you should do the Robin song. And I was like, the Robin song? I was like, what?
That's cool.
So I like really just had to have this moment of security, and like I kind of just like, I would regret this forever if I didn't do my original. Like if I go down and it's with a cover, like I'm going to be so much more sad if I go down. It's like with an original, because like I would always regret that. So I think it was nerve-wracking, but I was comforted walking in there doing my song because, I feel like you have to really represent yourself as an artist. And I don't think I thought where my artistry lied was, in the song that I was going to perform, just like the actual composition of it, not really performance. So it was really weird having that validated, and then on top of that just getting this vocal show reaction. Like it was just it was just so weird because I wasn't even expecting them to like even comment on my voice. It was just such a weird moment. I went you get online at like 6:45 a.m. and then I wound up not even auditioning until like 9:30 p.m. And so I was just
all day.
You
sat there all day. Jesus
I was
Christ.
Just sitting there for like however many hours, like 15 hours, just with my brain going like bing bong, bing bong, bing bong, bing. So I think that I kind of rode all of the emotions in that 15 hours. And by the time I was like, okay, Julia, just like, it's too late now.
You're just exhausted. You're like, oh my God, just fuck it.
Yeah, I was literally the last person in the freaking room. It was mortifying.
Wow, though. But it worked out for you, though.
It did. And that's crazy. And again, like, that moment was so life-changing, not even in the sense of where I'm going with my career, which is also really cool, but in the sense of just being a whole new person. And I know it sounds dramatic, but it just is. It's such a
Of course it is.
It's such a dramatic change, and that's what I'm talking about. Like to be able to, not do anything that would push me into a better place in my life, to just like doing it, which I don't really understand that.
Did you find that like right before you did the audition, did you find that you might have like let it go for a little bit. I'm not quoting Frozen here, but but I do find, especially in my life and in other people's lives that I've had the pleasure to talk to, there's this moment where, where there is like a life-changing moment, and they were like, you know what, fuck it, I want to do this. I have my vision here, but you know what, whatever. And then again, there's like a pattern where that usually tends to be like a shift. And there is this weird pattern where like when people choose to let go, whatever that means, I think it's different for everybody. Something does happen. And I'm wondering for you, do you feel like, yes, you were there for 15 hours, but maybe because of that, because of all that, your brain and everything, maybe you did have like a brief moment where you're like, you know what, fuck it. Let's see what happens.
Literally felt like I was Pinocchio on somebody's strings. Like I just could not. Was Pinocchio even attached to strings?
I think he was, wasn't he?
Okay, well then
I don't remember.
Well, if he was, then the reference stands because or a puppet. Let's just say a puppet on strings.
He was a puppet, yes.
Yes, he was a puppet. So I just felt like I couldn't even. I just don't know. I still don't understand how. If I'm being real, like I don't. I guess I was just like, just do what you do. Like you're going to sing your own song. I think I would have been a lot more nervous if I went with the Robin song. Like I think it would have been a completely different experience. I think I just had to believe that the producers like really liked my first audition. They really liked the song, like Growing Pains, like which was the name of the song I auditioned with. Really, like I got a rise out of them from that song, and I was like, okay, Julie, just remember that. Just go in, and whatever happens, it's fine. It's like you're surrounded by your family, which also terrified me. I didn't want anybody there just because I was so nervous. And
I
then
get it.
then you just walk in and you just like, at that point though, I was kind of so like dazed from, I guess, waiting that Katy Perry just seemed like a mirage. Like they didn't really seem real. So I was not as nervous, but I just, I just did it. I just did it. So weird. I think I was like too late. I can either go in and be confident or like chicken out and look like a fool. So I was like, okay, can't look like a fool. We already know that about me. So.
That's pretty badass. Like, I love that. I don't know. It just seemed like whether or not it was you or not. This is like a random, like left field question, but do you believe in like energy or like higher power or any of that stuff? Yeah. Well, if I can ask, what do you believe in? I'm not sure if this should be.
No, it's okay. I'm not really religious, but I'm very faithful. So I believe in God, but and the universe. I'm a complete believer in the synergy between the two. Yeah, I think that there is a total like cycle, but I do believe in God, and so I do think that something that day and just through the whole process, like I just felt like I got a little push from something or something aligned where, it's hard to explain because
it is.
Yeah,
I wish we could explain it. I felt that before many times, and it is a very fascinating phenomenon when you kind of don't know what you're doing, in the sense where you tell people like, yeah, I was there, but also like, I don't know if it was me because I wasn't thinking then. I think
exactly
there could be a scientific explanation, but I don't know. Like I do believe in a higher power too. Like I'm kind of I did grow up very religious, but I also now at this point I'm kind of just exploring different concepts,
yeah, I grew up religious too. But.
Yeah. And so like for me, like I definitely believe in energy and all this bunch of stuff. I don't know. It's all like fucking crazy, but I'm glad that you were able to tap into whatever it was and able to use it. And so now kind of like fast forwarding a little bit, now that you are succeeding, you're taking charge of your music career, which must be nerve wracking, but also exciting.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, how are you holding up now? I mean, especially because of the pandemic, American Idol has passed, and so now you're kind of in charge of what you want to do.
Yeah.
How does that combine with your brain? Because there is, in my opinion, this is based on what I've heard you say. There is one thing to just like exist with it and learn how to cope with it and like manage it, but then once you're given the keys to like your car, be like, all right, here you go,
exactly,
go for a drive.
Yeah.
Does your brain get in the way at all? I mean, I don't know.
Oh my God.
What do you think?
Okay. Well, yeah, my brain really did. My brain has a habit of doing that, just getting in the way of, and my thing is just like really small decisions too. Like it's not even like big ones. Like it was just so distracting. But the other thing that's difficult, especially in quarantine or with a job that you're just super passionate about, is you forget to nourish every other part of your life. In my experience. So you don't even realize, you don't really realize what you're doing to yourself, and you don't realize just the anxiety that can cause. And that's just a normal thing that everybody deals with. And that's what I'm saying. Like, anxiety is definitely, it can be more serious with people, but this is something that people do, and it can cause such strains in their everything. Like, for example, I feel like I'm just sitting in front of my computer all day, or my piano, and just like with my headphones on, that do I exercise anymore? Do I like worry too much about what I'm eating? Like, do I even care about, really, like, I know it's going to sound crazy, but even friendships, like I think quarantine has just made us such homebodies, and I have had such a hard time. I love my friends to death, but I've had a hard time getting out of my house and like wanting to, like, like have, it's weird. It's just such a weird thing. Again, being such a outspoken and like outgoing, and I loved people. I was always like a girl that loved to go party or whatever. And obviously we can't do that now because COVID, but
right. You can have a party at your house though. By
have a party of one. Whoop, whoop. Yeah.
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 But do you find that maybe, did you find that there was a couple friends that you've had for a while that sort of just kind of not disappeared, but have been very distant, obviously because we're all alone in the house? Because that's happened to me for sure. Like I've always had a very tight knit group of friends.
Yeah, I'm
but
that
like,
friend.
well, like here's the reality. I do feel like COVID, through all its pros and cons, in my opinion, has taught a lot of people who their closest people really are.
100%.
The ones who really, really try their best to reach out. So has that happened to you, I guess, is what I'm asking.
It's again, I don't even know if I notice it, and that's how lost in the music sauce I've been. It's just like, I just don't even like, and it's troubling though, because I think that I've been the one slipping on my friends. Like, hell yeah, just because my brain has, and obviously I'm going on a really uphill walk with my mental health. It got really, like, just a couple weeks ago, I was just in a completely different place than I am right now. And it be like that. To put it, like, it happens like that. So I think friend groups obviously, like, have that problem, but I just feel like you just can't blame anyone, because everything's just on their phone. It's just so weird. You forget how to like have good conversations with people, and you almost like, it's weird being 23. I can't imagine just like anyone, a lot older than I am, that have just lived their whole life one way, and then kind of got thrown this curveball and just have to learn weird new things about themselves and be like,
Imagine, I mean, hopefully we're back to normal soon, but like it's gonna feel weird for a little bit.
I know.
It's gonna feel like a fresh of breath air, but
exactly,
it's gonna be weird.
I know, and I think that's why I think the reason I was starting to plummet a bit again, because I had that whole distraction for so long. Like, I was living my, one way, like my best life for months on that show, and just the excitement and the buzz that came after it, and then when everything settled down, it's like, oh, this is like the reality of what right now is for everybody. That is great. I almost felt selfish, because like, oh my God, y'all have been dealing with this since March. Holy crap. Nuts.
Yeah. I gotta say, I'm sorry that you have to like go through that, because it's such an exciting thing to do, and then it gets cut short a little bit,
But again, that's like and the thing that I like to remember is that it's just like everyone with their new opportunities, like, and the only reason I think it sucks so much is just that it was like the first, like, it's the same thing for kids that have their senior year or something like that, where it's like, it's supposed to be a really exciting year. Like, that was the thing. But that breaks my heart though, thinking about like people in high school or college right now. Like, those were such fun years. Oh my God. Like,
I can't imagine what it would be like having to live, through Zoom and going to college through Zoom,
know. And like, that shapes you, like all of those experiences in high school, and like all the crazy stuff you get into. And it's just like, that's what, I don't know. And I'm just like heartbroken that some people just can't have that experience. Ugh.
Well, I'm hoping that things get a little bit better.
Yeah.
It does seem like things are getting a little bit better, and hopefully, I don't know. I'm really hoping that we're all able to like get through this together. And I do appreciate, Julia, you being honest with me and just being open. I feel like I've taken enough of your time at this point, but it's like, I love having these kind of conversations, because I think at the end of the day, what connects us most, I mean, there's many things that connect us, but having conversations and just getting to know you for who you are, not only is it a treat for me, but I feel like everyone deserves to just see like the real you, you know, and whatever you are allowed to them for them to see. And I'm just very honored that I get a chance to, you know, have a conversation like this with you. I really do appreciate you being honest. And I know you already talked about your music, but at the end of every episode, I kind of just like to kind of discuss a little bit about what you got going on, some of the new stuff that you're working on. Maybe you can let me know a little bit of like some of the themes that you're trying to cover with some of this music that you've got. I don't know, whatever you want to tell me.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I love having conversations like this because just so many people nowadays, especially with everything, are just really having a hard time with their own brain. So it's my pleasure to talk about it.
And it's important to take care of this, man.
Oh my gosh. It's just like so overlooked. Oh, it's crazy. It's just crazy. Brain's a dangerous place to be stuck in.
Yes.
But with my music though, I mean, I just put out a single, You Don't Get To. I was mentioning it before. That's everywhere now to stream or download or, you know, watch on YouTube. And I already have single 2 picked out. And I just like, it's been such a cool learning experience, and, you know, what sound I'm really going for with production and stuff, which has been new. And, I just keep getting more and more excited about, you know, each song in the catalog. So we have single 1 out right now, You Don't Get To. Next one is already in the works. And
what's it called?
I can't tell you what the next one's called yet.
Lame.
I know, but I'm just like, you know, I love, my favorite kind of music is just really organic music. Like, you know, I've always had like a big affinity for classic rock and stuff like that, and Radiohead's my favorite band. So, but I love pop music, so I'm trying to do something cool where it could be a pop song but add a few like fire electrics in there or something and some real drums. So I'm just trying to do something cool here, but might take a bit.
Yeah. Any plan for, I mean, obviously things are closed still kind of, but any live shows, anything like that?
Honestly, that is what I am so excited for. That is where, I mean, even though I had that weird, you know, hiccup with my confidence in my voice and stuff, I've always loved performing with a band. Like, I love to perform, so I'm so excited to get back and do that. And it's just where I feel most creative, and, you know, it's just sick. So there's, as soon as I'm allowed, I will be everywhere at one time. I will make
like day one, the minute it's like open, I'll be there. I am morning.
Yeah, exactly. I am exactly.
Yeah, Julia, you are a phenomenal person. I got to say this. I do appreciate your honesty, and that is me being honest.
Absolutely. That's what you get.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the truth. Like, the reality is, you know, there's so many great artists out there, and the world is full of great and talented people. But, you know, to be able to share something that's valuable and that helps people grow, like that, to me, I'm all about that. And so I really appreciate you being honest and open. It's worth gold to me. And so I'm grateful that I get to spend this moment with you. It's
Absolutely.
been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. And yeah, I mean, what a cool platform you give people to, like, you know, to talk about stuff like this. So thank you. And thank you for having me be a part of it.
Of course, Miss Julia Gargano, everybody. She's amazing. And I'll definitely make sure to link all your music and everything. You are absolutely amazing. And thank you for being